Hi, welcome to our channel Good New. Former Speaker of the United States House of Representatives Newt Gingrich once wrote an article about China and U.S. infrastructure. She remarked that China's development in infrastructure stands in stark contrast to America's stagnation, and the gap is widening. Gingrich expressed alarm about a pattern in which China's infrastructure is fast increasing while the United States is still debating whether to increase infrastructure. In response to critics, Gingrich proposed a strategy in which American politicians, interest groups, lobbyists, trade unions, and all other interested parties ride China's high-speed rail to experience its comfort, cleanliness, ease, and service. Then, in the United States, board the fast train and compare the distance between the two sides. This disparity is substantially bigger than anticipated. The Acera Express has a maximum speed of 240 km per hour, but the actual speed is just little more than 100 km per hour, whereas China's Beijing-Shanghai high-speed railway has a maximum speed of 486.1 km per hour. The two are in no way similar. Furthermore, as of December 30, 2021, China's high-speed rail operational mileage had surpassed 40,000 kilometers, placing it first in the world, accounting for more than two-thirds of global high-speed rail operating mileage, greater than the total of other countries. Furthermore, China constructs around 60% of the world's high-speed rail. During China's Lunar New Year, 539 million journeys were taken, according to a news conference held by the Ministry of Transport on February 8. 120 million traveled by train, 390 million by vehicle, 9.01 million by boat, and 18.89 million by air. According to data, the overall length of China's high-speed railway has surpassed 40,000 kilometers, making it the world's fastest developing country. 94 of China's 100 cities with populations greater than 1 million have high-speed railroads, nearly covering all big and medium-sized cities. In 2010, then California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger toured Japan, Korea, and China, marveling at their high-speed trains. He was caught aback by China's railway growth. China's, albeit still in their infancy, were already quicker than those in America by roughly 120 miles, 190 kilometers, per hour. California's goals were modest in comparison, with plans to complete one line from San Francisco to Los Angeles, around 70% the length of China's longest, by 2020, 10 years later. A second phase would link Los Angeles to San Diego to the south and Merced to Sacramento to the north. California was still 10 years distant 10 years later. Meanwhile, the cost had risen from $33 billion in the initial plan in 2008 to $53 billion in 2012, to $77 billion in 2018, more than double the original estimate. It is still growing worse. After failing to reach an agreement with Caltrain, its trains will have two sets of doors at different heights for various stops, in an embarrassing display of American bureaucracy. While California was arguing about the height of its doors and defending itself from litigation, China just built. Even after becoming the world leader in high-speed rail, it never looked back, pressing ahead until it had exceeded every other nation combined. Then two-thirds of the global total. What's more astounding is that it accomplished all of this while being a middle-income country. Its per capita GDP was under $3,400 in current US dollars when it began development. Few others are discernible when the length of each nation's high-speed rail is adjusted by GDP per capita. However, trains are simply one high-profile example of a much bigger trend, that, while China's tactics are rough and contentious, they are ultimately more efficient. For example, the country has far more electric buses than any place else on the earth, by far. One city even developed an elevated bus lane to allow buses to bypass gridlock. In comparison, the quantity of electric charging stations dwarfs all other locations. While Congress mulls over big tech monopolies, Chinese officials simply snap their fingers and dismantle them. It is sometimes believed that American politicians only consider one election cycle ahead, but Chinese leaders may plan 50 or 100-year grand schemes. High-speed rail requires three components to be successful. The first and most evident requirement is a large number of individuals. Not only a huge number, but preferably a string of densely packed clusters. The vast majority of China's 100 cities with populations more than 1 million are conveniently clustered together on the country's eastern, coastline side. Second, it must not be prohibitively costly. Again, no worries. Aside from the much reduced labor costs, the sheer magnitude of China's plans enabled construction corporations to optimize every step of the process and amortize massive expenditures over a significantly longer time and project horizon. According to a World Bank analysis, its average cost is at least 40% less than the European counterpart. It didn't hurt that everything, including the trains, was manufactured in China. Finally, a suitable candidate for high-speed rail is wealthy. This was very emphatically not the case. But, with yearly GDP growth of more than 10%, it wasn't unreasonable to believe it would happen soon. Its initial few lines connected wealthy first, second, and third-tier towns such as Nanjing, China's fifth richest city, to Guangzhou, China's 13th. They are also the appropriate length. For excursions of less than 100 miles, it's usually better to drive or take the bus, especially because many stations are located well outside of city cores. For excursions of more than 750 miles, however, flying is typically preferred. Even the quickest trains might take up to 5 hours to complete these routes. The Goldilocks zone for high-speed rail is between 100 and 750 miles, but notably below 500 miles, too far to drive, but not far enough to fly. 8 of its initial 10 routes had total lengths that were within these limits. Everything appeared to make sense. And if it had ended there in 2010, it would still have the world's longest high-speed rail network today. Even if no new buildings were built for the following 12 years, it would be remembered as a magnificent achievement in terms of pace, scale, and cost. Instead, China continued to construct. This was not the intended goal. Far from being a big, strategic plan, it, like most of what we now call modern China, was a reaction to the 2008 financial crisis. The transportation and electricity infrastructure received 45% of the almost $600 billion stimulus package. It felt like the ideal time to take the chance and push ahead, rather than sit back and wait until its infrastructure crumbled, as the United States had. Overall, with the continued expansion of the global economy, China's cultural output is becoming more frequent, and China's commercial performance is also good, particularly the Chinese infrastructure, which shines in the worldwide community on a regular basis. The Three Gorges Dam, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, and other projects have not only generated one miracle after another in China, but have also renewed foreigners' perceptions of infrastructure over and again. If America can't create cost-effective high-speed rail due to unending red tape, China's prevalence must be proof of success rather than a reflection of its own distinct flavor of bureaucratic inefficiency. China's high-speed rail technology is now self-sufficient, so even U.S. officials were full of admiration after China's high-speed rail, saying the U.S. is not as excellent as China in the field of rail technology. As is widely known, high-speed rail has become China's postcard construction, with many international friends making special trips to China. In the near future, China's high-speed rail will not only serve the Chinese people, but will also follow China's infrastructure team to conquer global railway orders. Thanks for watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.